In 1914, a small town in Illinois got exactly 1 mile of brand new concrete road, paved for free. The reason had almost nothing to do with helping that town. It was bait. Drivers hit that one smooth mile in the middle of hours of mud and went straight home furious enough to demand the rest get paved too. That trick is basically how all 3,389 miles of the first coast-to-coast American highway got built. Before any of that, in 1913, there was no way to drive coast to coast at all. Not a rough way, not a slow way. A businessman named Carl Fisher decided to build one anyway, using private money instead of government money, and pave an entire continent without asking Washington for a dime. A military convoy would later spend 62 days finding every weak bridge on that route, one collapse at a time. Engineers crossing the Sierra Nevada didn't build a new road. They paved directly over a toll wagon road cut 60 years earlier to supply railroad construction. I went through Highway Association records, state engineering reports, and old construction photographs, and used advanced AI to reconstruct the whole timeline in order. 15 years, 12 states, and thousands of mismatched work crews, all building toward the same unfinished line on a map. Fisher's pitch to the auto industry was simple. Build the roads, and you sell the cars that need them. Henry Ford turned him down flat, insisting road building was government's job. Frank Sieberling of Goodyear and Henry Joy of Packard didn't agree, and their money got the project moving. Joy proposed the Lincoln Highway name, which Fisher adopted. The association launched on July 1, 1913. Announcing a plan was one thing. Getting anyone, anywhere along the entire route to actually pick up a shovel was another matter entirely. Nobody had even decided where the road was actually going to go yet. How do you plan a continuous route through 12 states when barely any of the existing roads between them actually connect? You don't build from scratch. The Lincoln Highway Association sent surveyors out to stitch together whatever passable roads, wagon trails, and old stagecoach paths already existed, choosing the most direct usable path rather than engineering an entirely new road from nothing. Field Secretary Henry Osterman and Henry Joy personally drove the proposed route multiple times, marking the path with red, white, and blue paint stripes as they went. The AI reconstruction shows the survey at ground level. Osterman at a county line farm track, checking rut depth by eye, calling the ditch crossable or not. Surveyors prioritized roads that could handle automobile weight with minimal regrading, avoiding routes that would require blasting through rock, or building entirely new bridges wherever an adequate crossing already existed nearby. The final alignment, dedicated on October 31, 1913, ran 3,389 miles from Times Square to San Francisco's Lincoln Park, crossing 12 states and deliberately skipping Colorado and Kansas to avoid unnecessary distance and difficult terrain. Key cities along the route included Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Chicago, Omaha, Cheyenne, and Salt Lake City, chosen partly because existing roads already connected reasonably well between them. Dedication itself became a construction milestone of its own, with bonfires and organized ceremonies in hundreds of towns along the route, several of which swept and washed their own streets specifically so crowds could dance on the newly designated highway that same night. Almost none of that 389-mile route was actually paved. Most of it was dirt, and dirt roads in 1913 meant mud in spring, dust in summer, and real risk of getting stuck for days. Surveying the route took months precisely because so few of the connecting roads had ever been built to any consistent standard, forcing Osterman and Joy to personally judge which farm tracks and county roads could plausibly handle sustained automobile traffic. The association didn't have anywhere near enough money to pave 3,389 miles at once, so it needed a way to prove concrete was worth the investment without actually paying for all of it. The answer was the seedling mile, the same free mile of concrete from the start of this video. The idea was to pave exactly 1 mile of highway in concrete, dropped in the middle of an otherwise terrible stretch of dirt road, positioned at least 6 miles from the nearest town, so drivers hit it fresh off the mud. The first one went down in October 1914, just west of Malta, Illinois. 10 feet wide, funded by donated cement from the Marquette Cement Company, rather than a single dollar from the association itself. Building it required standard road construction steps, even at that small scale, grading the subgrade to the correct crown and slope for drainage, setting wooden forms along both edges to hold the wet concrete to width, then hand mixing and pouring the concrete in sections before troweling the surface smooth. The AI reconstruction of the Malta pour shows the gang in 200-foot sections, 2 men on the screed board, 1 troweling the edges, mixed by wheelbarrow from a hand-cranked drum mixer. Why would cement companies give away thousands of dollars in free concrete to towns that hadn't paid for anything else? Advertising, essentially. The Portland Cement Association saw an opportunity to prove concrete roads outlasted gravel and dirt, and donated materials to any community willing to grade the subgrade, provide drainage, and supply the labor themselves. Between 1914 and 1920, several seedling miles went down across Illinois, Iowa, and Nebraska. Illinois built 2 of them, and Nebraska matched that with 2 of its own, each community handling its own grading crew and construction schedule independently, with no shared timeline connecting any of the projects. The earliest ones ran only 10 feet wide, barely 1 lane, before the standard widened to 16 feet and eventually 18. The logic ran entirely in reverse. Build 1 smooth mile specifically to make the deficiency of every surrounding mile impossible to ignore. Iowa's own seedling mile ran into a different kind of construction delay entirely. Wartime inflation more than doubled the price of the cement pledged back in 1914 by the time crews finally poured it in 1918, and the finished stretch still came up roughly 200 feet short of a full mile once construction wrapped. It worked. Drivers who'd spent hours grinding through mud hit smooth concrete and went straight home demanding their county pave the rest. Iowa's Lynn County seedling mile alone took from August 1918 to June 1919 to finish. And the connecting roads on either side of it weren't paved for another 6 years after that. Nebraska's Grand Island seedling mile, completed in November 1915, became the second such demonstration built in the entire country, funded partly through $1,170 raised locally by a single resident determined to get his town on the list. Outside those seedling miles, construction ran on a patchwork of local money, local labor, and local standards. And that patchwork showed. Every county built to its own specification, since no federal agency existed yet to enforce a single width, grade, or surface type across state lines. Some stretches got graded and covered in crushed stone, essentially macadam construction using horse-drawn graders and hand-laid rock. Others stayed dirt, reshaped occasionally by a drag grader but never actually surfaced. Ahead of a major promotional tour, one stretch saw more than 30 new concrete bridges built or expedited in a matter of months, proof that money could move fast when there was a deadline attached to it. Grading crews relied on horse-drawn drag graders and blade graders for most of this work, simple steel blades pulled across the roadbed to cut a crown into the surface, so rainwater ran off to the sides instead of pooling in the middle. The AI reconstruction of a typical 1915 stretch makes the result visible. A graded crowned surface on one side of a county line, ungraded cart track on the other. The practical consequence was 12 states each with 12 different definitions of what a road was supposed to be. None of that patchwork building was sustainable forever. Something was going to force a reckoning. In 1916, the Federal Aid Road Act finally brought federal money into the picture for the first time. Funding matched dollar for dollar with state governments, rather than routed through the association directly. Construction accelerated, but the road remained a genuine mixture of concrete, gravel, and raw dirt for years afterward. For the first time, a road project anywhere in the country could tap into a funding source bigger than what a single county or private association could raise on its own, though the matching fund structure still required states to cover half of every dollar spent. That reckoning arrived wearing an Army uniform. By 1919, enough of the highway existed that the U.S. Army decided to test it as a military supply route, sending a convoy of 81 vehicles from Washington, D.C. to San Francisco. What actually happens when you send heavy military trucks across bridges built for horse-drawn wagons and light automobile traffic? They fail repeatedly. The convoy took 62 days to cross the country, averaged barely 6 miles an hour, and broke or collapsed bridges that simply weren't engineered for that kind of load. Vehicles sank axle-deep in unpaved stretches, and crews spent entire days winching trucks out of mud that a car could normally cross in minutes. The convoy itself stretched more than 80 vehicles long, including heavy trucks, tractors, and a mobile machine shop. None of it built with the era's fragile timber bridges or unstable dirt shoulders in mind. Engineers traveling with the convoy documented every failure in writing, creating what amounted to an unplanned coast-to-coast engineering survey of exactly where the highway's construction had failed to keep pace with its own ambition. The AI reconstruction of the Nebraska crossing shows the scale. 2 miles of convoy with no paved surface, no firm shoulder, bridges rated for farm wagons a fraction of what was grinding across them. That documentation mattered more than the trip itself. It gave state and federal engineers an itemized list of exactly which bridges, grades, and surfaces needed rebuilding first, instead of guessing where the worst construction gaps actually were. One officer on that trip, a young lieutenant colonel named Dwight Eisenhower, submitted a formal engineering assessment to the Army Motor Transport Corps the following November. He cataloged every bridge failure and mud crossing with the same systematic attention he'd later bring to evaluating infrastructure on an entirely different continent. Fixing bridges and standardizing width was one problem. 2 stretches of the route weren't really fixable at all, just barely survivable. Paving the flat stretches was hard enough on its own, with grading crews battling drainage and soft subgrade across hundreds of miles of prairie. 2 sections of the route counted among the most difficult construction problems on the entire highway, for entirely opposite reasons. Crossing the Sierra Nevada meant climbing to roughly 7,000 feet through Donner Pass, and engineers didn't build a new road up that grade. They paved over the Dutch Flat and Donner Lake Wagon Road, built in 1863 by several hundred workers to supply Central Pacific Railroad crews pushing the transcontinental line east from Sacramento. Theodore Judah had identified Donner Pass as the best Sierra route in 1860. The wagon road followed that same corridor 3 years later. Early travelers found half the mountain crossing graded gravel, the other half a steep, narrow shelf road with drop-offs on one side and loose rock on the other. The AI reconstruction shows the original wagon road cuts under the early concrete, wooden forms set directly against the old stone roadbed with almost no new grading above 6,500 feet. The original Lincoln Highway's path through Utah presented the opposite problem. Not a mountain, but a desert. The route dropped south from Salt Lake City through Fish Springs, Calayo, and Ibapa, before entering Nevada near Ely, one of the most remote stretches on the entire highway, 300 miles of largely unsurfaced alkaline terrain with almost nothing in between. Alkaline ground turned to impassable slurry in wet weather and corroded vehicle undercarriages in dry. By 1927, engineers gave up on the southern alignment entirely, rerouting north through Wendover and cutting over 100 miles from the Utah crossing, abandoning everything the prior decade of survey work had established on the original desert path. By the mid-1920s, paving finally started catching up to the mapped route, more than a decade after the first seedling mile had gone down specifically to prove this moment was possible. State highway departments took over most of the remaining construction, converting the last unpaved stretches to concrete or macadam, using techniques standardized after a group of 17 highway engineers met between 1920 and 1921 to spec out a road built to handle traffic decades into the future. That conference produced detailed specifications most states hadn't bothered writing down before. Minimum base thickness, standard crown height for drainage, and load limits meant to keep bridges from failing the way so many had during the 1919 convoy. Realignment work physically shortened the highway, cutting the original 3,389 miles to roughly 3,142 by switching to the shorter Wendover alignment and straightening several other rural stretches. Straightening curves and cutting unnecessary detours saved drivers real time. but it also meant portions of road that communities had fought hard to get included back in 1913 were quietly dropped from the route a decade later. The Lincoln Highway Association, having spent 15 years pushing this project from a private fundraising pitch to a mostly paved reality, dissolved on December 31, 1927, believing its job was largely finished. Its final act was to authorize a permanent marking project. On September 1, 1928, Boy Scout troops installed approximately 3,000 concrete posts along the entire route simultaneously, coordinated across 13 states in a single morning. Each post bore the Lincoln Highway's blue L logo on a white background and a bronze medallion of Abraham Lincoln in profile, with the inscription, "This highway dedicated to Abraham Lincoln." A directional arrow on the opposite face pointed drivers toward the continuation of the route. 15 years after Fisher's original pitch, it wasn't quite finished. As late as 1938, roughly 42 miles of the original route still weren't surfaced with anything better than gravel, a small but stubborn reminder of how uneven the construction had been from county to county for over 2 decades. What actually built the Lincoln Highway wasn't a single contractor or a single engineering standard. It was thousands of separate, mismatched construction jobs, a mile of donated concrete here, a graded gravel stretch there, stitched together by an association that never held any legal authority to force a single piece of it to match. That patchwork approach is exactly what the 1919 Army convoy exposed, bridge by broken bridge, and exactly what the following decade of state-funded paving quietly fixed, one inconsistent county at a time. Sections of the original concrete, including part of that first 1914 seedling mile near Malta, Illinois, are still preserved today, along with hundreds of the original markers still standing where Boy Scout troops placed them on that single September morning in 1928. The 1919 convoy route is still drivable in long stretches too, following the same corridor the Army spent 62 days crossing. Subscribe if you want more early infrastructure builds broken down this way, and tell me in the comments which forgotten road or bridge I should dig into next.